when Kerry asked me to do a presentation, I'd had a number of topics, and central banks and what they're doing with gold was one of those, and I could have given a conventional presentation, but I thought, no, let's do something a bit different. And this idea I had, or thoughts that I had, was probably quite a number of years ago that I came up with this, but I've never really talked about it because when I mentioned it to someone, they said that it was an insane but intriguing. So let's talk about the insane side of it first. Why would I be talking about central banks divesting gold when they hold a pretty substantial part of the 195,000 tonnes of gold? That's a pretty big slice of the pie there. Indeed, the World Gold Council, in what they do on their website, it's the number 2 item. It's one of their major focuses, so much so that they have a whole special executive program that you can pay. Only central bankers, of course, can only go to this, but you can pay $4,500 and get told how to manage your reserves and handle them. So it's pretty important for the industry. Indeed, I myself just did an article at the Gold Industry Group on their website about how central bank gold reserves have been growing and how they've been growing really from mainly China, India, Russia, the main ones. So it's pretty important. But the thing about it is that as the Financial Times, which is a mainstream, if ever there was, media, says, you know, if a central bank owns just as much gold as private individuals, then doesn't it have the power to flood and crash that market? Indeed, isn't that sort of the whole rationale and the whole point behind the gold antitrust action, which I'm sure many people are aware of? They're very vocal, and one of their favourite sayings is there aren't any markets anymore, there are only interventions. I mean, the whole point that Gator makes is that central banks, or their claim is that central banks are manipulating the price. And they claim that a lot of that can be done with derivatives or futures. But notwithstanding that, I mean, even if there is lots of claimed naked short selling that goes on, you do ultimately have to have physical. You have to supply physical into the market to maintain a suppression. Because I'm sure if we woke up tomorrow and the paper price was pushed down to $500 an ounce, you can be sure there'll be plenty of Indians and Chinese that would just jump at that and look to buy. So if the theory that the price is being suppressed is true, you need physical. And yet we let the central banks have that physical. As Adrian Nash sort of said, and indeed this is the interesting thing that I find, is that gold bugs obsess about the central bank sales and the leasing and all of those things that they do, but they never ask, why did they have it? How did they get it? And this article that he wrote around the financial crisis time, and the total war that he's talking about there was the First World War. And prior to that, we were on a gold standard, as Don McKay-Coghill mentioned. But the interesting thing, there wasn't central banks, it was a free use of gold. Gold was coins, sovereigns. You could put it in a bank on deposit if you didn't like what the bank was doing, you didn't like the status of that bank or their assets or their loans, you could pull the physical gold out. People were in control of their metal. But what happened after that with the establishment of the Federal Reserve and various other things is all that gold got centralised into central bank vaults and basically came out of free control by the average person. Indeed, you can't go almost anywhere on the internet without someone throwing out the gold confiscation that happened in Roosevelt. And that was really nationalisation of gold holdings, taking it off the people and centralising it. And Gary North wrote this not too long ago. As he said, if you call for, or in this case we accept, government ownership of gold in such substantial amounts, isn't that really the same as calling for or accepting ownership of railways and airlines? It's not really consistent with the free market ethos, a libertarian ethos that a lot of gold investors hold. It's not really very consistent. Is there a better option? Interestingly, in 1997, academics at the Federal Reserve actually did try to answer this question of this lovely sort of very clinical, can it be put to better use, qualitative and quantitative effects? Indeed, they were so smug about it that these two academics followed up in 2000. And why was that? It was because when they put the paper out, the gold price was $400 an ounce. And then by 2000, it had dropped down to 250. And they were really saying, see, we were so smart and told you should have sold it all, but you didn't, and now you've lost more money. So they had another paper out. And this time they were a bit more explicit. The benefits of expediting the sales. So what did they say in this paper? Well, it was very scientific. It has many, many, many pages of this typical sort of economic formulas. I don't understand any of it, but maybe it makes sense. I don't know. It's an economic model. And this was what their statement was. So if they said, if all the governments sell their gold, this is particularly US, rather than never sell, the total welfare, that's great, total welfare, and these were $1997, so heaven help us if how much they'd be worth now. But by depressing the prices, these sales would benefit depletion users, that's great. Oh, they're all happy. But it would injure private owners of stocks, that's gold investors, and mine owners would be the principal losers. Oh, geez, that's too bad. But however, we could compensate them. I just love this clinical academic language. And here's a lovely little table. There's many tables and many numbers, but I'll just highlight this for you. These are the physical gold investors, and they would estimate that we would lose 189 billion. See you later. There it goes. And the equity investors in gold mines, they would lose 133 billion. See you later. Too bad. Those are the losers. But there are other people the government benefits, these depletion users and service users. That means jewellery holders, that sort of thing. It's very clinical. Yes, I don't know, Bron. That's the rub, isn't it? If they sold it, we'd lose money. So isn't that just asking for us to be government subsidised by saying that central banks to hold the metal? We're asking for a subsidy. Now, I'm sure you're going, great, Bron, that's really, that makes me feel really good. Maybe others are saying, well, you know what, I don't care because it's a crony capitalist system. Other people get their subsidies, everyone's out for themselves. Anything that we're making out of this by governments holding the gold, well, that hardly compensates me for all the other taxes and everything else that I pay. So fair's fair. Yeah, okay. But I think I have a plan which I can relieve your, uncomfortableness with this. And that's the intriguing part, hopefully, of my crazy plan. So what's the idea? Well, I did create a little bit of a trick when I wrote the title because I used the word divest. I didn't say to sell. So if they confiscated it and took it off the people in the first place, and that was such a bad thing that all the gold bugs talk about, shouldn't we return it back? So let's say we divided gold reserves that a country had by the population. In the case of Australia, that would be about 1/10 of an ounce. In the US, that would work out about 0.8. Maybe you might want to change how you're going to allocate. You might say, look, only if you paid taxes and really contributed, you can get something. In that case, you might in Australia get 2/10 of an ounce. In the US, it's about 1.8 ounces. Everyone can get a gold eagle or two. I'm sure we could come up with some, rash allocation method that would keep social justice warriors happy and help poor people and all that sort of thing. How could we do it? Well, once you get your gold check from the government, maybe you pick up your physical from a bullion dealer, or just say, look, I've already got a storage account with them. So Possibly maybe people from the Perth Mint and ABC and other bullion deals are saying, I think that Bron sounded pretty crazy earlier on, but this is looking pretty good. Well, alternatively, you could give people credit and they could go to a jewellery store and get a free credit for their jewellery purchases. Maybe we could, get a PR firm in to create some marketing, call it the Great Gold Giveaway, getting your gold back. And there's the Governor Reserve Bank and, gets to dole the coins out to the adoring crowd. Everyone will love you, Philip. Everyone will love you with this. Get the gold back. There's a little bit of a downside, of course, because, everyone does love free stuff. So that is there's no doubt this program will be, very popular, I'd imagine. But of course, probably the majority of people will just want to sell it. Give me the cash. But it's an economic stimulus. Everyone complains about how the economy is potentially turning over. Well, this will be great. Everyone gets a bit of stuff, get a bit of money to get them boosted. It will give the haters an excuse. I just love this guy, Jason, Mr. Pet Rock. He must have really, you can see the smugness there in his little Wall Street Journal, photo there, but he must have really loved writing that article. He's almost got the bottom there. He called it a little bit before the bottom. Gold price dropped a little bit more after that article, but it hasn't fallen any lower. So maybe it's one of those contra-indicators. But my evil plan, does have a trap in it. There's no such thing as bad publicity. This will be extremely popular. I mean, you can imagine that if the gold industry or any substantial program is saying, let's give gold back, well, it's going to be very popular. Everyone will be talking about it. We can guarantee that gold will be on the public newspapers, the politicians will be asked lots of questions about it. Everyone's going to be saying, do you want to keep your gold? Or should you sell your gold? I mean, could we ask for better marketing? I mean, this would break gold right into that whole mainstream discussion. But of course, you're saying, look, Bron, I don't know, but that's great. I can see the benefits of that, and maybe people might buy some gold on the top of that promotion, but, if they agree to it, the price is probably going to get crashed. But I'd argue that they never will. The central bankers, particularly, and politicians, never will do that. Why not? And the reason is because of that chart. When did this change? Because you'll notice there's a change there. The dark blue is all the other central banks in the rest of the world. You notice how they're selling and selling and selling, and then it just went flat. And then you'll notice that China and Russia particularly started accumulating. What was that magic point? It's interesting they both pivot at the exact same point, which is the financial crisis. I don't think that's coincidental. Okay, the central bankers realised there was a problem and they went, I'm going to keep my gold. I'm not selling it anymore, I'm not getting rid of it. Now that's obvious to us, it's obvious to people in the industry who follow and look at the numbers. No one else is watching that, no one realises that. You don't look at what people say, you look at what they do. What are they doing? They're holding the gold. Indeed, Bullion Star went out, and it's not just a survey, but they emailed and contacted 42 of the top holders of gold and asked them why. Now only about a quarter of them replied. And there are really only two reasons given. These are the main two reasons. So it was either basically your safe haven argument or a portfolio diversification argument, for the central bank, that is. But it's interesting that 75% of them would not answer the question. Extremely allergic to even saying anything positive about gold. And the one big benefit of this crazy plan is that it forces the central bankers, it forces them, these are people that everyone looks to. They're looking, when's the next interest rate rise? What is the central bank going to do? These are thought leaders, these are important people. It would force them to have to say something about gold. And I love, you probably don't realise this was a hearing in the US in front of Ron Paul, I'm sure most gold bugs will be aware, he's a big gold bug himself, and Ben Bernanke. And I love this exchange. It speaks to this reluctance to talk about gold. So Ron Paul said, why do you hold it? And he gave the typical political non-answer, it's a form of reserves. That's not the answer. So then he pushed him and said, well, why don't you just hold some diamonds then? That's, an asset. And then he gave this ridiculous, I consider it a completely ridiculous answer, which unfortunately Ron Paul never followed up. He just let it ride. And I think he had a limited time of speaking that he could ask questions. Tradition, seriously. This is a reserve bank that has 300 plus PhDs on which controls key metrics like interest rates and all these other important things in the economy, and they're just doing something because it's traditional. I would have said to him, if that's really your answer, you've got no logical, rational reason for holding gold, you shouldn't be in charge of these important parts of the economy. But Ben said that because he couldn't give the real reason. The reason was on the previous slides. He did not want to be on record as saying it's a great investment, it's a safe haven, it's a portfolio diversifier. He just couldn't do it. It would kill him. So what I'm proposing is pretty crazy, yep. I think it's a high return but low risk. It's high return because it really puts gold back in the conversation. Who doesn't want free stuff? You can be sure everyone's going to be talking about it. So everyone's going to be talking about gold. And they're going to be asking about what should I do it? Is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? Everyone would be talking about it. And you would force some sort of endorsement out of a central bank. Because you can imagine with the attention that it would get, particularly if we're going to give lots of gold to poor people, everyone's going to get, $500 or $300 or $400. It's like free money. That's going to help people. You can't have a central bank say, no, I don't want to give it out. Why not? All these people are going to get this free stuff. He can't give, a politician can't give a non-answer to that. They have to come out and say, well, why aren't you giving this gold away? Warren Buffett will jump in for sure. Those gold haters will jump in. Warren Buffett. I can see a journalist saying, but Warren Buffett says gold's this crazy thing that we dig out and stick in another vault, vault in the ground. All these people are saying that gold's stupid, but so why don't you want to sell it and give it back to the people? It would force them to have to answer that question. And of course, once a politician or once a central banker says, well, we hold it because it's a good investment, but in short terms is what they would say, well, hey, everyone in the gold industry can now quote Ben Bernanke or quote whatever Reserve Bank governor at the time as having endorsed gold as a good investment. So the average person will go, wait a minute, our own central bank holds it and our own central bank is not going to sell and doesn't want to give it back to us, it's so valuable, maybe I should hold some. And as I said on that other slide, if you think about where we are financially and where we are geopolitically with China and Russia, do you really think, particularly in the US, they're going to sell and get rid of 8,000 tonnes? No way. There's no way they're going to want to get rid of that. No way at all. So it's pretty low risk. No, very, very next to no chance. Okay, I don't want to be saying it's no risk at all. So if you believe in central bank manipulation, we don't want them to hold the gold to be able to sustain that manipulation. If you don't believe there's any gold in Fort Knox, and there's plenty of people that don't, well, you shouldn't have any problem with this strategy at all, because first of all, there's no gold to be sold, so there's going to be no price suppression. Two, you'll just love watching people squirm. We're trying not to have to reveal that, and maybe it might get revealed, in which case, who knows how high the gold price will go. So anyone who really believes that should be fully endorse this plan I have. If you really believe in free markets, then obviously you don't believe in centralisation and control by a central sort of government. You want a free market. So the free market means you've got to let that gold go and let the people decide what they want to do with it, hold it, sell it. And if you just believe in greed, okay, you just want the money, I think that this would be, they won't sell it, but you'll get the massive publicity push and a lot more people interested, looking at and buying gold. So I don't know, am I insane? Is this plan crazy? Maybe. Or maybe it's just crazy like a fox. Thank you.